my very first year was Rookie of the Year. Second was an All-Star, but what I really want to get to is the Eastern Conference Finals, get deep into the playoffs. You can see just even within that quote, I don't know if it's a direct quote necessarily, but a paraphrasing of what he said, the maturation, right? You come into the league, he's like, all right, I'm going to work on me. I'm going to become this Rookie of the Year, did it, All-Star. Now he's gotten a taste of what success means, and he wants to take this team deep into the playoffs. This reminds me of something that Moritz said in one of the post-game interviews when he was talking about the difference between training camp last year and this year, or someone asked him about previous camps and this camp. And he said, it's not really much of a difference, but what there is, and I'm looking at my notes here, is he says the difference is there is more intuition at this. He says there's more clue. And at first I thought he was going into a board game reference there for a second because he had a nice pause. And I'm like, it was Professor Plum with the pipe in the kitchen. But he wasn't going into a clue allusion there. He said, we have more of a clue regarding where we want to go. The team, Paolo Banchero and this team, have seen where they want to go. And Pish, I think it's even more emphatic because of how close the team got and the tragic way in which they lost that lead in a Game 7. You could almost taste it. You could almost feel the confetti go into the second round in the locker room, and then you're let down. And you don't get by a Cavs team that just had more experience. They had more established guys, and they were just a further step along. Mm-hmm. But now we've taken our bumps, and we're ready, Pish. Sorry, it's off to you now.
No, I that's a great point. I've said this for years, but I think in particular it's good for a young team to have some failures. And I will use the most recent young team that had a deep run, the Memphis Grizzlies, who kind of had a great season. They kind of got upset in the playoffs, and they just didn't rebound from that. Like they didn't use that they let that break them. That either those moments will either break a young team or they will strengthen a young team. From what I've heard, it's strengthened our team. Now the results will be there on the scoreboards all season long to see if that in fact actually moves us up the chain. But that's got to be the next step for us, is using that as motivation. All great teams, I think, throughout history have had a stumble before they got to go to the championship level. So I think that's a good statement from him there to notice that, okay, now it's a little different because the stakes have been raised, right? The odds have been changed on Orlando Magic games. And so now there's a different kind of pressure to deliver other than just trying to work on your game and hopefully try to win some basketball games. Now it's about hitting that next step, hitting that next level, winning playoff series. And I think everyone's got the good mindset for it. I think we're in a good place going into the season, but again, it'll translate in the win-loss column.
Okay. Let's go right into the win-loss column, Pish. Thank you for that transition. Let's talk about, everyone's projecting standings. If things could be what P5 says and we could potentially see ourselves in the Eastern Conference Finals, or at least that's the goal, what will be the standings? Let's see here. We have @MagicWired here on Instagram, and they have their 2024 NBA standings predictions. I'm going to make a little of a homer call on this one. You got the Celtics as number 1, the Knicks number 2. There's our Orlando Magic at 3, 55-27. The Sixers at 4, the Pacers at 5, the Cavs, then the Bucks, then the Heat, then the Bulls, and blah, 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 then the other teams. Pish is shaking his head. Pish, you have the first swing at this one.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like that, this is a Magic-based account, obviously. You're going to want to try to put us up there in the top 3 or 4. I get that, but I really do think we could be slotting in at the 4 or 5 spot, but it's going to be close at the end, sort of like it was last season where, we could have been second, with a couple weeks to go, or as low as like 6th, and we ended up 5th. I just feel like the Bucks are too low on this. 45-37 doesn't seem right. Dame Lillard is going to come out with the biggest chip on his shoulder he's ever had. He's probably actually going to be 2 inches taller now because of that chip. I think the Sixers adding Paul George are going to be a lot better and challenge for that top spot with the Celtics. And I also think the Knicks got a lot better in the short term with Cat. coming in there, because he's not maybe a good big game player in the playoffs, but as far as in the regular season, that guy puts up numbers and he's a problem. And it's going to be a problem for the Eastern Conference. I think that trade is pretty good for both teams, honestly, when you look at it. I think in the long term, I think that's going to work out okay for Minnesota as well, because of the draft picks, especially because it's Detroit's draft pick. So it's like, because I do believe with this Detroit standing here, although I'd like to hope for their sake they don't have to go through another season like this.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've seen a team be this bad for this long.
Yeah, that for those listening, Magic Wired has the Pistons at 17-65. Man, that would be. You got to send condolences there over there, man. Thoughts and prayers up to Detroit.
Real bad for a long time, and it's going to be hard for them to keep a fan base when that continues. You can have a couple shit seasons. The first season of our podcast was one of the worst in Orlando Magic history. We're still here, but. Yeah, the average fan may fall off during some of those years, and if you put together 4 or 5 of those, people are definitely going to go to sleep on you. But yeah, I would think the Celtics, Knicks, Sixers, and maybe even the Bucks above us. But I feel like I'm disrespecting the Pacers, who, by the way, beat us in the playoffs last year by not allowing them to be ahead of us. But I feel like we'll be better than them in the long run this year.
Wait, you said the Pacers ahead of us? Not paying them respect? Did you mean the Cavs? The Pacers didn't beat us in the playoffs.
Oh, sorry, it was the Cavs. Yeah, see, the Cavs are very forgettable. They do belong below us, but the Pacers made it further in the playoffs than us. Is kind of what I was getting at.
Okay, yep.
They actually had a better playoff run, so you would think, okay, well, they're in the Final Four of the Eastern Conference last year. They should be in the top 5 this year, but I think I've got them at like 6 or 7, and I still don't have respect for the Cavs despite them beating us in the first round to continue what they're doing. I think they have a lot of holes that are going to show themselves during the season.
Yeah, it's tough to predict this out. It's been very clearly stated from the team, Pish, that the goal is top 4 because everyone saw how home court advantage played out in the playoffs in our series. The home team won every single time. And talking about lessons, and I think Coach Mosley was talking about what do we take from the most recent thing? What do we take over? What do we carry over? What do we bring with us? What's the learning that's happening? The learning there was very clear. Hey, get that home court advantage. It can pay dividends in the playoff when you get people in the Kia Soul Center just going batshit crazy. The players have realized that, man, Orlando is alive and home court advantage is a thing all season long, but especially in the playoffs. It's tough. It's tough to pick here. The Celtics are going to be without Kristaps until December, ish. Can you rattle off some more wins early than they can? I do like the Knicks, like you said. Short term, the Knicks are looking better. Cat in the regular season, you add like a 20-10 guy there. That doesn't seem to make any team worse, but their depth is much abridged now without Dante DiVincenzo. So we'll see how that plays off. One nick up here, injury here or there, they have a much shallower team now, but I still think they're in the top 4. 76ers, I think they know now, hey, we need to be healthy in the playoffs. Does that mean that they're sitting Embiid and resting Embiid and Paul George throughout the season? These teams that are ahead of us, they have their blemishes. They're older than us. We've been young. Knock on wood, we've been pretty healthy the last couple seasons. So there are some opportunities to sneak into the top 4. I think the Bucks are being really disrespected here. Damian Lillard, another season in Milwaukee. He went through a divorce last season. I mean, that's got to be shit. The guy was moving to a new town. Like, man, now he's got his feet under him. The big question is Chris Middleton with your B team. And for those of you just joining us, Pish lived in Milwaukee for some time, so the Bucks are one of his B teams. I don't know. I don't like the gamble that they did by letting Drew Holiday go for, it seemed like, Chris Middleton. And then what happens? Drew Holiday goes and wins a championship. I thought he was more integral to that than Chris Middleton. So they bet a lot on Middleton, and we'll see if he comes through. He's been really injured the past couple of years. Hopefully he comes out of it and he's healthy this year, because I want to see good competition in the Eastern Conference. But as you said, kind of, I see him right in that 4-5 competition. I think there's going to be 3 teams that will squeak ahead of us, but hey, why not us? Why not now, Peach? right?
And I
This
know
team
our
can do
fans
it.
don't want to hear it, but Jimmy Butler's still on the Miami Heat, who we
Yeah.
haven't mentioned at all in this. And even if they come in at 8th or 7th, they're going to be a problem. I don't want to play them in the playoffs ever.
Yeah.
So, not as long as Jimmy Butler's playing, because that guy's a different man in the playoffs. Someone kidnaps his family every year, and he has to play, or they don't live. And his family's alive and well. So.
So that's another plug, Peach. Come out to Court Cousins night, December 26th, when the Magic take on the Heat. Big inter-Florida rivalry. Going to be a good one. Woo. Okay. Let's go. Let's sneak into that. I mean, last year, we could have snuck into the last game could have been second or third was the highest we could have done if we wouldn't have barfed up so many games there at the end. That was tough.
Yeah, our end of the season was not as good as it could have been, and I think that hopefully those are like the lessons that we're learning, that got to finish strong, because we could have easily been second or third and been looking at some home court advantage in that first round, and obviously that could have been the difference, because it was in the series we did play in.
Yeah, no, every game is important, and I've heard that in the interviews from the sound, the practice sound, the preseason sound that they've been putting out, and everyone's been kind of talking about that. So you can tell that Mosley's been drilling this idea that, hey, a random game in January, quote unquote random, isn't really random. Every single game is important, no matter where it is in the season, no matter who it's against. Cole Anthony talked about how the coaches have been letting them run, play a lot of 5-on-5, work stuff out on their own. These coaches have put the infrastructure in to trust the players' maturity and work it out. And so, as Cole said, we want to hit the ground running. I feel like this team's going to come out hot. Hey, we might surprise some people. We might sneak into the top 3. I don't think it's crazy for Magic Wired. I just think might be. We might be drinking a little too much of the Kool-Aid just with that preseason excitement that all fandoms are feeling, and probably 4 or 5 might be more realistic. The most realistic thing for us.
To their credit, though, just the fact that we can have the conversation and say it's not crazy to think we could be 3 is awesome.
Right.
Because that is nowhere near where we were 4 years ago when we started this.